Good afternoon, everyone. This is a talk which I wanted to give because there's a tradition in universities, well-established universities, when professors demit office, they give a farewell lecture. Apart from that, this technicality, I had this thought in my mind for a very, very long time. And a thought that resides in you and is not expelled is a very heavy burden to keep. So I thought I'll use this opportunity to address you and to unburden myself of the heavy thought that has been with me for a very long time. We have met on many occasions. I have spoken my mind on many occasions. Most of you must have been bored stiff with me talking to you again and again. But I can say this with certainty, and there are very few things in this life which you can say with certainty, that this would be my last lecture that I give in this university. So those of whom who were bored can always breathe a sigh of relief. Those of you who still want to carry on with me, in this age of communication, nothing is impossible. So those who really want to be in touch with me, I will be in touch with them. I hope by now you have understood that I am an approachable person, that you can come over to me anytime you like and speak to me, and I'm very happy to speak to young people and young minds and people of my profession, of my trade. Doing sociology has a sociological root. This topic has a sociological root. And this root is in a work done by a person called C. Wright Mills, in a book which I'm quite sure students of sociology have read, called The Sociological Imagination. And he says in that sociological imagination that it enables us, the reader, the practitioner, to grasp history and biography and the relations between the two within society. Biography and history. And then goes on to say that is its task and its promise. He also says that no social study that does not come back to the problems of biography, of history, and their intersections within a society has completed its intellectual journey. I was very struck by this passage. And I thought, me too, I too as well should complete my intellectual journey. I began learning sociology many moons ago. I'm still learning it. It's not that I know everything of sociology or the social sciences. But my experience of being in colleges and universities, among people who taught me, has given me some modicum of understanding of what social science research is. And it allowed me to go back to my biography and connect it with my history. And therefore, why I do sociology. So correctly or incorrectly, we do sociology for what I call adequate summations, cohesive assessments, comprehensive orientations. And I can never be out of these summations or these cohesive assessments. In the social sciences, the researcher is always present. The researcher is never absent. Because to remove the researcher from what he is or she is researching is to remove a vital part of the sociological imagination which C.I. Mills calls biography. Our biographies determine sometimes our history, and our history sometimes determines our biography. And the intersection of the sociological biographical imagination is intersection of biography and history. And therefore, as we all know, sociological imagination is the personal trouble of the milieu and the public issues of social structure. Personal and the public. And in my talk today, I shall try to keep on talking to you about the structure and personal. I have not structured this part, which is very much like me. I'm a very spontaneous person. I don't structure my thoughts very well. I speak off the cuff, and most of the time rubbish. But at times, I do make sense to others who seem to nod their heads in approval. I did not structure this paper because I want to have a free-flowing conversation. The unburdening of the thought that has been with me cannot be unburdened if I structure this. But at the same time, C.I. Mills once tells me that it's in your biography which is forcing you to say what you are saying now. So let me go back to my biography for a bit. I grew up in Kolkata, which is where I come from. It's my native city. And we have been for 3 generations born and brought up in Kolkata. My grandparents from my maternal side comes from Patna. And they were born and they read and they were educated in Patna. Because my maternal grandfather taught in Patna, first in a school, and then in a college, and then at university. And I stand before you and speak to you because I was, at a very early age, completely enamored of my grandfather. And I thought I would be, one day, a teacher like him. A strange ambition to have. People don't usually want to be a teacher. But my grandfather was a different matter. I have 2 sets of wonderful grandparents, very different from each other. My maternal grandfather, whom I just alluded to, was a very simple and humble man. He came from a very poor family, displaced from his native Faridpur in Bangladesh. In 1905, traveled to Benares, the son of a goldsmith, thrown out of house after his father died, and brought up by a Brahmo Samaj Prachalak in a small town in what is now Jharkhand, Gididi, as a house clerk. But I'm not talking about my grandfather. I'm talking about him who resides in me. And as I understand from the little biographical sketch that I gave him, he was a very learned man. And he taught Pali and Sanskrit and Bangla, comparative literature, which many of us still find it very difficult. He was all about 5 feet and 5 inches and nothing. But I had the honor of having his presence around me, even now as I speak. Despite the fact that he left us in 1974, when I was a kid. But I remember him very well. What I remember him of the best was that he was a fantastic spiritual person. And as a dedicated Brahmo, he would call us to prayers in the evening, just about the sun would set. He would sit, and we would start praying. You know, the Brahmos are not idolaters, they are monotheists. So all he needed was to sit in a place and have the surrounding. I was maybe in class 3 or class 4, if I could recollect. And as with all Brahmo prayers, he would start by saying, There's only one God, whose kripa, whose presence is what we inspire. And then he would go on to say, in his own words, which was very, very alluring, Asuto ma satyamaya, from ignorance to truth. Tamoso ma jyotirgamaya, from darkness to light. Pratyama pratyamaya, from death to immortality. Unless you think that this was a Hindu man doing his prayers, his immediate response next would be to say, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of the God, most gracious and most merciful. And when I ask myself, why is it that I am not swayed by communal passions today? Why is it that communism doesn't touch me? Why is it that I can embrace everyone, irrespective of faith, irrespective of color, irrespective of where he or she comes from, and I take great pride in that. I am reminded of this 5 foot 5 inch starting man, a small man who commanded great respect in the university. And he began his evening prayers by saying, Om Mukhopadhyay. And he was the one who first gave me, sorry, hello, I'm here to lecture, my lecture is Prof. G. I'm sorry for this. So this person was neither tall nor handsome, nor was he, looking chic and sexy. It was a great influence on me. And I stand before you because of him. My other set of grandparents were equally very interesting people. My paternal grandfather was a gunner in the British Indian Army. And he went to Mesopotamia, to a town called Basra in Iraq, what is modern Iraq. And because he crossed the 7 seas, he was promptly expelled from his house. He became a Tajyaputra, one who has been expelled from his house. Because as a strict Brahmin, and my name still carries that legacy, chief of Mukhopadhyay, Mukhopadhyay. But as a strict Brahmin, his father, my grandfather's father, could not accept that his son would have crossed the 7 seas. My grandfather, my paternal grandfather, that is, taught me to stand straight. He was a fine example of the Homo erectus. In a milieu where we now are swamped with Homo sapiens, finding a Homo erectus is very difficult. So my grandfather was. So when he got thrown out of the house, he merely carried on the gospel. So he told his father that I'm going to join the Indian Army, He was thrown out. And as soon as he got thrown out, he didn't cower and come back and touch the feet of his father and say, take me in. He went to Fort William where they were recruiting. And the captain still stands. You won't see it with the underground. And where he went on to Iraq. Where among other things, he used to make omelets of the ostrich egg. And he carried the egg of the ostrich back to Calcutta. My earliest memories of him in his room would be lying down in his bed with the ostrich egg, a proud symbol, in one of the one of the shelves of his bedroom. And he would say that he could calculate about 16 omelets a day. I was very impressed. But then, he also taught me a very important thing. He also became a Brahmin, like my maternal grandfather. Though my maternal grandfather would be under the present circumstances scheduled caste. So for him it's understandable. But for my paternal grandfather to move from Brahmanism to being Brahmin, from rejecting a life of great, what we call extra economic appropriation in sociology, was because he told me that if you think you're superior to someone because you are wearing a sacred thread, then you are a buffoon. You have to prove to me a person who is quite true. I do not know if I have lived up to his reputation, but I am sure that I learned from him how to be homo erectus, which is the reason why I run into trouble with authority when they become too irrational. And I find sociology there. Because sociology teaches me to interrogate, ask difficult questions, to make it legitimate to ask questions, to say that it is what is required of you to do. And therefore all of us who are sociologists and social scientists, our ideal is the homo erectus. Therefore my grandfather. The immediacy of my doing sociology, of course, would unfold many decades later. When I would be in when I would be in St. Xavier's College, where I did my undergraduate in political science, I came to meet a very interesting professor, Professor Mukhopadhyay, who unfortunately left me very early. He was not supposed to do so, and he went without telling me. I was a great fan of his, I still remain a great fan of his. Professor Sengupta came from a great lineage in Bengali literature. His grandfather was Ashwindu Kumar Sengupta, and his own uncle was the advisor to him how to screen the Gandhi Arjun Sengupta, the famous economist. But if you had looked at K.K. Sengupta in college, you would have never understood that he came from such a powerful family. I remember a professor who used to always wear a maroon-colored half shirt and a dark-colored trouser and roam around in the class like a tiger on a leash. And he used to teach us political sociology. In my college, we were tested every other day, and I was doing quite well. Till the time came when in a series of tests, I nearly aced it. I was doing about 22, 21 out of 25. That was ridiculous. I was in Calcutta University, no one gave me more than 56 if you were a good student. And K.K. Sengupta, this man whom we all feared, either on the leash, caught me in the corridor. I said, "Hey, Ashok, come here." And I came to him and I was very afraid of what's coming. And he said, "You know your answers? Your answers have a lot of sociological component. If I were you, I would do sociology." So I asked him, "Where do I go to do sociology?" And he said, "You go to JNU or you go to Delhi University D school, but mind you, you have to write a national test to get it. But if you are doing sociology, you might as well go there. Doing sociology, you might as well go there." In our days, as students, we always thought of our teachers as gurus. Not the archaic guru that you are hearing now, that's nonsense, but the real guru. And I never questioned him, and I never looked back. The reason I'm standing in front of you is also because of Mr. Kelly. I remember him with great fondness. I would have loved him to be around. Why he left me, I don't know. But we were in touch till his dying days. And he told me a very interesting thing. He said, the more you do sociology, the more you do social science, you see, you will be confronted by the spirit of man. And the spirit of man lies in his artistic expressions. And this is from a trained social scientist, teaching in St. Xavier's College, a college of great repute. He doesn't get into teaching in St. Xavier's College because to get this past degree. I don't understand it. Too much about it. And he was a connoisseur of Western classical music. He loved Brahms and Beethoven and Tchaikovsky. So when I went to England on a Commonwealth scholarship, he was more proud than I was. And he told me two things, which makes me again a great sociologist. He called to me and he gave me a piece of paper in which were written a long list of albums which I should buy from none else but H&B on Oxford Street. And he told me specifically not to buy any album which did not have the name of the conductor as he had put it. No conductor will do except the one he wants. So when I went to London on Oxford Street in the huge H&B store, I headed for this classical music section and I gave a couple of them to the person who came out. He said, I don't know about them, let me call the manager. The manager, a proper British, right from the Dickens's world, comes on and says, I see, good afternoon, sir. This is a very, very interesting set of music. You have great taste, sir. I was about to say that taste belongs to my teacher, but I thought I will keep silent on that and you wished here, and allow him to think that I have great taste. As I now grow old, Brother Samantha, please come here. There's a seat here. He's here. And next to Dr. Gyan. So as I grow old, I realize that K.K. Sengupta was right. I find great solace in spiritual music. I have become of late in the last 10 years, a great fan of the Sufis. And I started to appreciate Mukhopadhyay. I have also become a great fan of the Baus. I come from the land of the Baus. And I have become a great fan of all those Baus, including what now constitutes Bangladesh, because no Baul who is a Baul would say that we are divided. So from Lalan Sai to Abdul Karim, I listen to music every time I go back from this university or from work. It cleanses my spirits. It allows me to think as of another human being, as a human being. So when Lalan says, Jater ki ache, Jater ki naam, what is the name of the caste that you have? And he asks a very interesting question. An illiterate man, questioning Homo hierarchicus of Louis Dumont, says, the water which you touch is the water by which your funeral rites, no matter who you are, will be conducted. And I'm thinking of commensality. I'm thinking of the fact that you cannot touch the water given by the Dalit. And I'm thinking of this great man called Lalon Shah, who was an illiterate man, who taught Rabindranath Tagore how to sing and how to understand the songs and the philosophy of rural India. I stand before you because Lalon Shah is there from Bengal, Vijay Shah is there from Sindh, Kabir is there from Central India, and they tell me a lot of things. And all of that I relate to sociology. So when I read caste, whether it is Dumont or Dipankar Gupta or Gray, I go back to my Lalon and ask him, and he says, this is all a construction. I recently found out that he has a wonderful song called Paap Punno, not only about caste, but about the greatness of Paap, evil, sin, and Punno, that which is good for you, which takes you to heaven. And in this, he says, Paap Punno kotha ke bole? Who talks about Paap and Punno? How do you know which is Paap? In my religion, eating pork may be bad. But among the Christians, and he says a very interesting formulation, he says, Dishu Balache, Jesus said, eat pork and beef. Why are Muslims and Hindus disturbed over this? How can it be good path if his Guru has said that this is for share? We talk about modernity. And in India, you go back to the medieval ages and you find modernity. And you find modernity. And therefore, when I read Anthony Giddens and I read late modernity, I read about the new social movement and the challenges to caste and gender bias, etc. I am taken to this world of Lalon Kabir. Shah Lalon Kabir, who questions us, to Kabir who questions us, the spirit that comes out of it. And then we read out a bit of Kabir, I think, on an afternoon. A bit of literature will not harm you. Kabir says, Mukhopadhyay dhunde bande. Where do you search for me? Right? And a young man, kind of my student, who sings Sundarshangan usually, put this two together, in Shanti together, Vishwanath, which I still think is one of the most wonderful universities you can even go to, which doesn't look like a university. Tagore says, Maje maje tobo dekha pai. Only sometimes do I meet you. Tops my pai. But do I always try to see you at the time? To which my student, in that song, he mixes the song that says, Mukhopadhyay dhunde bande, main to tera paas, this is what Kabir says. Where are you searching for me? I am there with you. And then goes on to say something which is, I think, all sociology students, all social science students, all of whom I think must understand. He says, Na tirat to me, na murat to me, not in a tirtha, not in the pilgrimage, na murat to me, not in a smurta, in a shubha murta, na ekanta nivas me, not in your own home alone, na mandir me, na masjid me, na kabe me, na kailash me. Where are you? I said, I'm not neither, not in any one of these locations. Na mai jap me, na mai tap me. I am not in the job. You can't pray on your prayer beats. Na tap me. You cannot meditate and find me. Na mai vrat upavas me. Not you can find me in many vrats or in any of the upavasis that you do, fasts that you do. ना मैं क्रिया कर्म में रहता ना ही योग संन्यास में. I don't stay in क्रिया कर्म, not in the work, inner worlding, but where sociology students will immediately pick up. ना ही योग संन्यास में, not in the yoga that is being preached. nahi pran mein, nahi pind mein. I'm not in the pran, not in the heart of yours. Not in the pind, not the pind you give to your generate your ancestors. Na Brahmanda Akash mein, not in this global and in this world. Na mein Trikuta Bhavar mein, sab saason ke swaas mein. He says, I am there in the air that you breathe. Sab saason mein swaas. खोजे हुए तुरंत मिल जाए. If you search for it, will immediately get you. एक पल की ही तलाश में, in 1 second, एक पल में, in 1 millisecond. कहे कबीर अंदर मुखा. सुनो भाई साधु, वाली जैसे तुझो साधक, तुझो सन्यासी. कबीर, सुनो भाई साधु, मैं तो हूँ विश्वास नहीं. मुंह को कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास. And when I looked at my Brahmo legacy, what my maternal grandfather taught me when he said, Asatoma Savidamayam, and then he said, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I said, this is what it is. This is what it is, isn't it? I am in your SARS. And every time you breathe, I am there. You have to believe in God. And for me, God is something that man creates. When I am mortal, I want someone to be immortal, and that God is immortal. When I am imperfect, I need someone who is perfect, and God is perfect. And therefore, pardon me by saying so. I don't think that God created man from his own shadow, and neither he from the 21st rib of Adam. I think man created God in his many, many multifarious ways. And sociology tells me to do that. I get great support from sociology. Because here it is a subject which allows you to be different, which asks you to be different, which legitimizes your difference, which says you don't have to be ashamed of what you are. You question the given. You don't take anything for granted. And therefore, sociology teaches me to be outraged, to stand tall, to speak truth to power, to walk the talk. It allows me to be a voyeur, looking intimately and peeping into others' business as a researcher. And yet, I am a stranger, as Andrevite would say. A very interesting formulation of what is fieldwork, and he said fieldwork is living intimately with the stranger. And when you live intimately with the stranger, you become an anthropologist. You think you learn the language, you live in the tribes, you live in Afghanistan like Punjabi or Subadar did, and you know them because you're writing a diary called the ethnographic diary, or the French would call it the ethnology, and yet you are not one of them. You understand that. And when you understand that, you become an anthropologist. And therefore, you see, sociology allows me to be championing my differences. It doesn't ask me to be conformist. It doesn't say go there and say yes and yes and yes to everything that is being said. And that's a relief. We live in perilous times. We live in times when conformity is the order of the day. We live just round the corner from fascism. We are edge. And like the good Germans that Hitler presided over, we have not raised our voices, thinking that this is a phenomena which will pass and not disturb me, that I will survive the storm. But we sociologists know better. When we read the text, when we understand society and power, we know it will not spare us. It will not spare us. because I am not raising my voice, but Kabir was. The Doha was raising a voice. Today we are sitting here in an auditorium, relaxed, listening to a person speak about the Doha as a work of art, an expression of artistic sensibility. But when Kabir was saying this, he must have been utterly ridiculed, much like Copernicus was saying that the earth is round. The truth has this tendency of always being harassed, misunderstood, and constantly kept aside. Till the time comes when it comes back to you. How do you do that in the task that is given to you? You have to rediscover for yourself on a daily basis the idea of truth. Not the truth, because there is no the truth, but the idea of truth. Because that idea of truth, you see, is what makes you a citizen of this world. And therefore, we have to talk about realization. We have to realize that such things are happening. But is not my life a realization? And that is a very interesting question that sociologists will ask. Are you, as a person who has lived his own life, be able to understand your own life? It's not an easy answer. Because biographies are not self-evident. Biographies, as T. Wright Mills would say, have to be embellished and bolstered by social history. For example, in 1995, one of my papers was accepted by the British Sociological Association in a conference that we held at York. And I was with Nesta, and my team found out that I have a paper which has been accepted. And she was very interesting, but she said, "Oh, so have mine. How good." Very British. I said, "How good. Let us drive down to York. You don't buy a ticket, I will take you down." And so Professor Sally Westwood, many of you who do sociology must have read a book on power and race, and a great sociologist. Said, "Let's go together to York." She lived in a very unfashionable part of the city. She wanted to declass herself from the Sussex girl that she was. But yet, as a remnant, she used to drive an Alfa Romeo. And one of the reasons I said yes was because she was driving an Alfa Romeo. I said, yes, why not? And so as we started, she would say, can I put a CD on and want to listen to a song? I said, of course, it's a long ride. And she said, have you heard of this Punjabi singer who's often coming to England, and Charles is a very great fan of this. So who's the singer? He says, Mukhopadhyay Ali Khan. And for a moment I thought, Mukhopadhyay Ali Khan is a Pakistani singer. What's this talking about? And then it became so personal. Mukhopadhyay Ali Khan is a Punjabi. Pakistan and India, Hindustan is only a creation of people who couldn't live together, who didn't have the imagination to accommodate each other. But Mukhopadhyay Ali Khan doesn't talk about borders. It was a Britisher, a Pakka British academic, a sociologist of great repute, who opened my eyes to the fact that Mukhopadhyay Ali Khan was a Punjabi and not a Pakistani. And so today when I listen to Mukhopadhyay Ali Khan, I listen to a Sufi singing a praise to humanity. So how do we recognize the other? If I had not met Sally Westwood, I would have been, like many others, ignorant of the fact, and I would have seen others as either Pakistanis or Indians. For me to transcend that boundary, to cross the water as it were, needed the British. And I'm so glad that I'm friends even now with Sally. My early appreciation of this learning about others and therefore politics was a happenstance, about which I had mentioned briefly. Can you please close the door? Sangeeta, can you please close the door? What happenstance? I come from that part of Calcutta, which is very famous for the Mukhopadhyay in the 60s. Literally, I was at the edge of Calcutta. My house was the last house in the row, which was under the Calcutta police. You took one step and you were with the police. I realized that addresses matter, because no one knew where we lived. No one knew where we lived with the school that I went to, which was quite a good school, and even now claims to be a very good school. But the students came from all over Calcutta, the kind of Tony areas of Calcutta, as it were. And I did not know where they lived, neither did they know where I lived. But the emergency, and what preceded the emergency, left me extremely school, taught me when I was only a kid about politics. So I learned very early on what a curfew was, what a combing operation was, what a gun machine carbine looks like, what a pipe gun looks like, what firing sounds like, what a bomb when it bursts sounds like. And I asked my father, why are they fighting? And some of that I also learned. Life lessons are more important than book lessons. And when I look at sociology and anthropology, I say, that's the book view and the field view. And when you do sociology, you must have come across this phrase. So I was in field view much before I was in the book view. And I learned my politics on the streets. I remember going to school in 1975. And we were in front of a very big station in Calcutta called Sialda. It was a crowded bus. We traveled in public buses only. My father couldn't afford a private car. And I was sitting pretty. And in front of me, a gentleman was very animatedly talking about the emergency and dictatorship of Indira Gandhi, etc., etc. I was quite old enough. I was in class 10, so I know very well. Or now nearly 10, I think is the line. And then suddenly, this very tall gentleman behind this friend who was talking, his friend, tapped him on his shoulders and said, Dada Jinamu, come down. And he turned around and he said, who are you? And he flashed a card. I don't know what card he flashes. Please. And he was arrested. So I came to know about arrests, about freedom of expression, about speech, much before I joined St. Xavier's College to read for a bachelor's in politics. Life teaches you lessons. The biography becomes important to become a sociologist. And as I said, no biography is self-evident. Until and unless that policeman had brought him down and arrested, I wouldn't have known Althusser. This is Althusser who said there is a state repressive apparatus and an ideological state apparatus. And when statesmen went blank, and my grandfather, the paternal grandfather, ex-army, would always subscribe to the statesman. When you go to statesman in emergency, one day the statesman had nothing printed on the first page. It was blank. Many decades later, the venerable statesman editor called me to his office and said, all right, you write well. You write a column for the statesman every month. And he started writing a column for the statesman. And I was told that it was his personal decision. as a protest against the emergency, not to print the front page of the statesman. And I think that those who come from communication and media will know this was a benchmark in protest of the press. One learns from reading. Not only textbooks in sociology, but from what goes around. And therefore, you see, my mind wanders. I'm a wanderer from the northern fringes of Kolkata to suddenly I find myself in St. Xavier's College, a very, very posh college, and I think even today. I deliberately use the word posh, not only intellectually important, but posh. Most of my fellow classmates had cars, and in those days, not one, but two. I remember the day I went to write the admission test, along with my friend, Shugato, who is a great economist, who teaches in Brunel and never come back from England, where we were together. And Shugato and I went to it was a very rainy day, it was wet July, and we had rolled up our trousers, though we were not rolled, and we were standing in the corridor, looking very much the middle class, no address Bengalis that we were. And all these posh people who were talking decided not to talk to us, ignored us. When the results came out, we were at 1 and 2, I think, and people started taking an interest in us. Shugatov was left for presidency and economics, and I stayed back. And one of the earliest lessons in class, social class, economic class, was Dr. Marx. It was given to me by my classmates. One day I walk into the class and I find no one there, except a boy called Deepak, who was blind and was completely dependent on me. I had to very chaperone him around. So I asked Deepak, who was a Marwari, but born and brought up in Kolkata like his father, I said, what happens? And he said, it's a mass monkey. I said, really? We were not told? He said, yes. This is some good movie had come. And I went to the veranda and I saw all my classmates leaving from the rear door, exiting the college. We were not told because we were not important. And then there would be monsoons. And Park Street, where this college is located, downtown, is famous, apart from its pastries and good food, for flooding. And we would pull up our trousers and have our shoes in our hands and walk. And all my classmates, waiters would go and I would stop and say, come in, and we'll take you to Chorogi, where the road is higher. It was a lesson in class. If you do not belong to that small circle, where Bengal Club talks to Saturday Club, where your uncle went to meet my father and my father met your aunt, then you can be in St. Xavier's College, but you are not in my class. So I learned very early on to distinguish between institutions and class, or social class matters. Sociology is all about class, as much as it's about tribe, as much as it is about caste. We live in a class society. We pretend we don't, it doesn't matter. Just like we live in a class society and keep on pretending it doesn't matter. Sociology tells me it matters. Sociology brings me to reality, puts me on terra firma and says, hey, what were you? Class matters, look around you. And so, it brings me to the dystopia of the urban state. It takes me to corners that I would have never gone. It makes me feel as if I am walking around like Pablo Neruda. And I'm a great fan of Pablo Neruda. Allow me to read the poem that I love most. It so happens that I'm sick of being a man. And it happens that I walk into tailor shops and movie houses, dried up, waterproof, like a swan made of felt, steering my way in a water of wombs and ashes. The smell of barber shops makes me break into hoarse sobs. The only thing I want is to lie still like stones or wood. The only thing I want is to see no more stores, no gardens, no more goods, no spectacles, no elevators. It so happens I am sick of my feet and my nails and my hair and my shadow. It so happens I'm sick of being a man. Still, it would be marvelous to terrify a law clerk with a cut lily or kill a nun with a blow on the ear. It would be great to go through the streets like a green knife, letting out yells until I die with cold. I don't want to go on being a root in the dark, insecure, stretched out, shivering in sleep, going on down into the moist guts of the earth, taking in and thinking, eating every day. I don't want so much misery. I don't want to go on as a root and as a tomb, alone under the ground, a warehouse with corpses, half-frozen, dying of grief. That's why on Monday, when it sees me coming with my convict face, blazes up like gasoline, and it howls on the way like a wounded wheel, and leaves tracks full of warm blood leading toward the night, and it pushes me into certain corners, into some moist houses, into hospitals where the bones fly out of the window, shoe shops that smell like vinegar, and certain streets hideous as cracks in the skin. There are sulfur-colored birds and the hideous intestines hanging over the doors of houses that I hate. And there are false teeth forgotten in the coffee pot. There are mirrors that also have wept from shame and terror. There are umbrellas everywhere, and venoms and umbilical cords. I stroll along serenely with my eyes and my shoes, my rage, forgetting everything. I walk by, going through office buildings and orthopedic shops and courtyards with washing hanging from the line, underwear, towels, shirts, from which slow, dirty tears are falling. And I was at this stage. I had just lost my father. And I discovered never back. I was 20 years old. And I did not know how to go about it. And my mother asked me what we want to do. And I had a very good understanding of society. I was a little precocious. Because the emergency, the social movement, the fact that I grew up in politics, made me precocious. And so when my father died and we were at the funeral, the big boss of my father's office said, "Don't you worry. You happen to be living at the David, aren't you?" So, yeah, come over. We'll give you a job. We'll train you. We'll train you and put you in a managerial position, and then you can go up. So I was sorted. And one of the most tallest figures that I have not yet mentioned, and I will now, was the Jesuit priest. Father Huat was like institutional sensibilities. And he asked me, what is it that is happening to Surajit? His French had not gone away, though he had lived for 50 years in Kolkata. And I told him the story. And he said, no. You shall not leave college. How can you leave college? So I said, but father, I need a job. My mom is only a school teacher. We have a mortgage in the house. Such is life. This is social life. This is the reality. And he said, no, you must complete your honors. You can withdraw after 2 years with a degree, but no, you should go on honors. But I said, I can't attend classes. And Father Huat was a terror for us. If we missed 3 classes on the trot, then he would write a letter to the parents, the guardians, and ask them to meet him. And would tell the student, bring your father along with you on the 3rd day. And he was always smiled, Even when he said, take a 7-day holiday, which was his way of saying you're suspended for 7 days. So I thought I was going for a 7-day holiday. If I kept quiet, I said, you see, I can't attend. And he said, who has asked you to attend classes? I said, the college. He said, but I am Father Rector. I am Father Boat. I say, you don't need to let him college. I will collect all the notes from the professors from Monday to Friday. And on Friday evening, as you go home, you will come by my cloister. See, Jesuits live in cloisters. So there's a kind of a monastery inside the village. Very few people go there. I'm privileged to go there. Even now, I go there at the Alumnus College. So you go to the cloister. And I give all the notes of the professors. And on Saturday morning, we shall study together in the cloister. And so also on Sunday morning, no, Sunday morning I must do Mass, but after Mass. And I looked at this man in wonderment. This great administrator everyone was afraid of. This French Belgian who spoke fluent Sanskrit, Latin, Greek, English, Bangla, Hindi, a polyglot, a doctorate from Oxford, a Jesuit, my passion, telling me, college doesn't matter, you must come. And I learned from him Caritas. And without Caritas, there is no social science. Until and unless we learn how to sympathize with the marginal, sympathize with those who are down and out, sympathize with those who require your help and support, you are not doing sociology. When you do sociology, you do it for a purpose. And the purpose is greater than you. The purpose is greater than you. And this Father Mukhopadhyay Jesuit who taught me that the purpose of education is greater than religion. And so it was that I went to the interview and the gentleman, the corporate honcho, said, yes, yes, of course, I thought senior for this, yes. And so, what have you done so far? I said, this. I said, we'll take me as a training clerk. I said, oh, really? But you said you'll be training me up as a managerial, mid-level manager. I said, no, I'm a training clerk. And what do I get? Get 250. Basically some evenings. But my first interview, I told the managing director, whoever it was, that for 250 rupees a man, a family in Kolkata doesn't survive, neither does it starve. I feel indignified, undignified. Right? To the bus and came home, and as I was coming home, it takes a little over 40-45 minutes to reach from Central Calcutta to my place. I was wondering what do I tell my mom? How do we live our life with my sibling? And so when I came to go home and I told mom this whole thing, she said, all right, what do you want to do? I said, I want to do a PhD. It looked nice. Actually, I did not know what a PhD is, but I heard people do PhD. And it was my father, my late father, who put this in, because he has who has never been to university, my mother as well. They did college, that's about it. But father thought no end of life in university. He always telling me, Premchand, Raichand scholar, you have to be a scholar and get a gold medal. The Premchand, Raichand gold medal, which according to him was the greatest thing that you could have earned as a scholar. Again, he left me before I could show him that I earned also a Commonwealth scholarship. Picked up among 40 constellations of this Commonwealth, but that is another matter. I regret that. So it was that I was battling with my mother, went to JNU. I had to pass one of those tests that my teacher picked and looked at us. But the question was, how does one survive in Delhi? So the university gave me a scholarship because I stood something like first class second in the university in Calcutta. So they said you get a scholarship. And the scholarship was a princely sum of 175 rupees. And with those 175 rupees, you were supposed to pay your mess bill. My mess bill came to about 180. So I was still 5 rupees short. And my deal with my mom is that I won't take a penny from her. And we will live our separate lives in economic sense. So 5 rupees short. And I asked a friend of mine, Ajay Mahokar, son of a IPS officer, Ajay, how does one get into tuitions? Because that's what I did my third year of my college. I self-financed myself by doing tuitions. I said, hey, he said, so, there's an Afghan family just come from Kabul, and they were looking for a tutor. And they had learned there at the back end of Purvanchal, and if you go there, we are a big university, public buses running inside the campus. I didn't ask, I hadn't even waited for a minute, I suppose. I jumped onto a 666 which moves into our campus and went to Purvanchal, met the professor. Yaldiwal came from Kabul to teach Pashto. And as you know, JNU in the School of Language teaches any language under the sun. So Pashto was being taught. And I met Professor Yaldiwal, who immediately accepted me and said, but I have 4 kids, 2 of them will be your students. I said, fine. But they know no English or Hindi. And I knew no Pashtun or Dari or Russian, which is the only 3 languages they knew. They were one up on me by knowing Russian, but I didn't know Russian. So my first difficulty was, how do we communicate with students? So I told Professor Yaldiwal, who knew English and a bit of working English and a bit of working Hindi, that I need a dictionary between Pashtun, which is the native language of Afghans, and into English and English to Pashtun. So the very next day we had a huge Pashtun, English Pashtun dictionary, and I started teaching 2 of my students, Ajmal and Hilai, the boy and the daughter. And I told Ajmal that you teach me Pashtun and I'll teach you English and Hindi. And that is how a friendship and comradeship developed between people who did not know each other, from different corners of geography, different parts of the world, different cultures. So much so that all 4 of them I taught. So much so that they last called me a muallim, which in Dari is the equivalent of a mullah or a master. So much so that this Pathan family would leave 2 of their daughters and 2 of their sons in my custody, and they would go out to do their shopping and whatever they did in the evenings. And I would be in charge. So much so that they would jump onto my shoulder and I have to bring them over to Nirulas for an ice cream, for they have done good work of the little money that I earned as a tuition, which their father had given me. And it was a wonderful experience. And I told Ajmal, when he was writing his first essay, as usual in the school, write an essay about your best friend. Najmal writes, my best friend is Abdullah, he is a Muslim, and goes on to write why they are good friends. And he shows me in the evening, he says, Muallim, here is my essay which I wrote in the class today. And they went to a very good school because they were under diplomatic exchange. And I said, you see Ajmal, Abdullah is a good friend, is a very good thing. But Abdullah is not a Muslim. He said, yes, he is. I said, no, he's not. He's a good friend, period. Am I your good friend or not? And he said, of course, Muallim, you are a very good friend of mine. I said, I'm not a Muslim. Am I? He said, no. And there you go. And he learned his lessons. And we've been great friends ever since. So much so that in the summer of '86, as I was going home, Eid fell in that summer. And 6:15, the bus was go from Purvanchal to New Delhi, begins from the place where they had their quarters. And as I was entering the bus, all my 4 kids came over, my kids now came over. And they said, Muallim, you cannot go to Kolkata. I said, why? He says, Eid is coming, and you have to be with us. I said, that is not possible. I have bought my tickets and I'm going to go home. My mom is there, so is my brother, and I want to see them. And the little one, the littlest one, I will use this back, Abbasin, was very naughty, said, with great intellectual thought behind it, Muallim, are there many Muslims in Calcutta? I could have been factual and said, of course there are. Most Bengalis are Muslims. But I did not want to break a little heart. And I said, of course not. And he said, then who will give you the dawat? And I stand before you because I did not starve in JNU. All because of the love given to me by Professor Yaldiwal's family. whom I am beholden, to Ajmal and to Rohilai and to Abbasin and to Hussain, who owned me for a long, long period of time, who made me feel as if I was a Pathan, who made me feel I was a part of the culture of Kandahar and Kabul. And sociology got me there. I was reading simultaneously sociology. And a great sociology professor, you must have heard his name, Avijit Pathak, and I were contemporaries. And we would be talking about such things in the after our departure from JAU. But it was only our teacher, therefore, who taught us about society. Young Abbasin taught me about it. His father taught me about that. Abbasin just to let him, very not important. Unlike his elder two, he wouldn't like to study. The other two was brilliant. They were like a father, very, very strong. They picked up Hindi in no time. They picked up English in no time. But Abbasin, of course, he spoke fluently. Because he used to play around with the kids in the neighborhood, the mohalla. He used to play cricket. And he was fearless. He would play with the deuce ball. And they would send him over to the farthest end, saying, you go there and stay. Hoping that he doesn't interfere with the cricket being played by the elders. And then Abbasin was told to come and begin classes with me. But his father said, I am going to hear him speaking in Dari, and from tomorrow you attend Muallim's classes. And he wouldn't. His father was very angry. So I told him that you don't have to attend classes. He was very happy. I said, not everyone in the family has to be literate. Your elder brother and your sisters can only claim to be literate when you have illiterates in the class. Let you be the literate boy. Right? And I said that I'll put you to Sharma's Xerox ka dukan. There was a Xerox ka dukan just across. And you learn how to do photocopy. To which Abbasin took umbrage and went to his father and complained against me. I could hear, Muallim said this, Muallim said that. And then I heard a resounding slap and a cry. And I ran. And there's poor Abbasin, crying with a huge slap on his face, given by a 6'3" tall Pathan. And I said, what have you done for a second diwan? He says, no, in our culture, no Muallim is ever challenged. If the Muallim has said that you go and start your work at Sharma's Dukan, then you go and work in Sharma's Dukan. I learned about South Asian solidarity, and when I thought about my father and my grandfather and the people I know, I said, how closely were we linked together in a common culture where deference is paid to the elder. And therefore in sociology we talk about deference as a certificatory model. I learned it from this. And I understood about a culture which is therefore, not divided by political lines. No Durand lines important for the Pathan, as Professor Gaddiwala said, and for me, no lines were important. So much so, and I'm talking about sympathy and compassion, was a day when we had 4 of them, with exams coming up. It was already 8:30. The last bus would move out at 9. But of course dinner was nearly over, and what I had to do was I told my hostel to keep dinner ready for me. The only person who took cognizance of this was young Ajmal. And he told me as I was leaving the gate, he said, Muallim, would you get your dinner? I said, yeah, of course. But what did it be cold? I said, yes, of course. He said, no, Muallim. Would you like to have dinner with us? And he was very hesitant. Touched my heart. And I said, why are you hesitant? He said, no, and if you would like to. And I understood his hesitancy, Muslim. And I said, what is the cooked? He said, that's why I'm asking you to biryani. And I said, who doesn't love biryani? Who the hell will stop you from eating biryani? And so we sat down to have a meal. And thereafter, Ajmal took care of my dinner. Every after I was like, you tell his mommy, Mama, Muallim's dinner. What a bonding we had. So, when you talk about, Raju writing about communalism, when I began with saying that why am I not communal? I think Ajmal and Professor Gaddiwala contributed too much to my learning. My biography came into my sociology. And therefore, it teaches to me, it teaches me to be outraged. And you, dear students, have to be outraged. You cannot accept things as it were. Because across the dividing line, across another culture, are your friends waiting for your hand extension. Across that dividing line are people with love and gratitude. All you have to do is reach out to them. And therefore, you have to be outraged. You have to speak truth to power. And therefore, when you are in love, and not only romantically with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, it will take you to lakes and pastures and mountains and forests and romance trips, and it will also tell you what is to be loved and what is to be hated. And it will therefore take you to the teacher. It opened me up to the fact that in this dark and dreary world, which was what Neruda was talking about, there is also a world in which if we live without being, you see, selfish, we have the world for us. And when I read Tagore, I see him writing that. He says in Anandadhara, he said, Anandadhara bohiche bhuvana, you see the happiness is moving around the earth, earth. Dino Rajani Koto Amrita Ras, the day and night are like nectar. Uthali Jaya Anantavaman, it rises to the skies. And I skip the part and says, to this part which is important for us sociologically. Shartu Nimavan Kikaram. Why are you enmeshed in your own swat, your own self? Charidike dekho chahi, hridoya prashari. Look at around you with an open heart. And then you'll understand that your pain and your predicaments are only little things. Bring love into your heart, and then you have brilliant life. And that, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, is what sociology did to me. It brought love, compassion, the idea that we all belong together into me. So that my sociology is a reflection of the kind of country I want, the kind of society I like. It's a reflection of the kind of society I wish to create. And I do so because I teach you people, and it is you, through you, that this will be created. I have great faith in that. Just like Abdul Shakuri, our great Paul, who said, I believe that one day this world will be the world of the Baus, the powdered chocolate coffee. Like the Baus, who have no caste, no creed, no religion, the powdered chocolate coffee. It will be the minstrel. And I'll end by saying, I go back to Raman Shah. And in Bengal, in my culture, we have the Madhura, which everyone knows. But we also have Kappas. Kappa is a power, it is a man. We say Kappa. And Kappa is a culture. Even today, if you go to a village called Gopitana, there are Kappas, the village of Kappas, where a Mansur Fakir, who is a Muslim by obviousness, sings about Krishna. Kappa. Unless your Kappa is going to do that. Who in their right mind would transcend their own religion? Except when you are a Kappa. Sociology teaches you to be a Kappa. It doesn't teach you deed or view. It is not new, it's already there. It allows you to see your cultural heritage in a new light. Which is why I talked about sociological imagination. Because the sociological imagination enables me to bring my biography and my history together. And when it does so, because that is its task and its promise, I become a better human being. You learn not to become something where you are calibrated and measured by property and salary. I think the university is a place which transforms you into something else. You come all bigoted, stereotyped, full of hate, and therefore, of course, ignorance. And your teachers make you to be a great person, a person about whom society will be proud of. Proud of. It's a long walk. As Mandela found out, it's a long walk to freedom. It's a long walk. It's a terrible thing. Nelson Mandela was jailed for saying all men are equal. In 1962, Livonian trial. All he said was blacks cannot be treated like this. Today you say that's true, so true. But in 1962, the year I was born, it was not true. I sometimes wonder that when I was born, was Mandela looking at me? I have a great fascination with Mandela. Here was a man who couldn't say I. He always said we. Always said we. So much so that when he was discovered with prostate cancer, he went to his secretary, a white Afrikaner, Zelda, and said, Zelda, we have prostate cancer. And Zelda told Mandela, they call him Dada, Dada, women cannot have prostate cancer. Here was a tall man, literally and figuratively, talking truth to power. We have to liberate ourselves from the prisons that we have created in us. A task which Max Weber understood when he talked about capitalism. How do you liberate yourself from the prisons that you have created? Your own creation. Your own shackles. And you would need to be egged on that way. And I'm quite sure that your teachers in this university and in this department would egg you on to become better human beings, to break your shackles, to make you free, to sing along with Tagore, but Ananda Dhara is Police Bhuvane, that the Ananda is there in the world in front of you, and that all you have to do is to come out of your shell, your selfishness, and see and then understand that those small little things that disturb you, those predicaments are so small that it is no longer worth pondering over. As I demit my office of the dean of the school, I hope that this will be an ongoing dialogue. In this world of instant communication, I am only a WhatsApp away. Therefore, we are not going to be lost to each other. Maybe we will not have a physical presence. But that also is something that is not going to be very important. Maybe in another 10 years or so, I will not be physically present on this earth as well. So that is a given. That's a given. What is not given, as Hegel would say, between being and becoming, being born and becoming, being and non-being is your becoming. What you become is important. And I hope that what we started in this school, of inviting people to speak, to make us aware of things that are going around, to have a conglomeration of people speaking from different platforms, from different perspectives, or having people like Professor Manto and Varnali Bhuya and K.P. Barua and others, or Professor Krishna Barua and others coming here and speaking to us, collaborating on things of law, but Professor Barua, and we had this United Nations Human Rights Day celebration, etc. All this collaboration should not be lost. This energy and this synergy and this inertia should not be lost, and that we can take it forward. Not in the hope that we will one day land up with a great job, or we'll make more money. Crooks make more money than me. The mafia makes more money than me. I don't want to join the mafia. I asked this question just about a couple of weeks back in a school in Nagaland, where the Vice Chancellor sent me to speak about RGU. I said, I have in my hand a small envelope which contains 1 crore of rupees. If you kill me, you get this crore. How many of you would kill me? Be honest. That was being honest. And then when I insisted, one hand went up. He said, he's going to kill me for 1 crore. But I said, that's good, because I needed more hands to come out. Because Those who have resisted the temptation to kill me for a crore are the ones who are getting educated. It's your education, it's your moral window and your ethical window which will make you a better human being. And you becoming a better human being is very important, because when you become a better human being, our country becomes a better place to stay. Our society becomes a better place to stay. There is no reason for you to believe that by coming merely into a university, you will become a better human being, because you will earn more. As I say, drop out of the university, earn more on the streets, be a mafia, be a hustler. You will earn crores. Corruption pays, and some money. Truth does not pay you money. But why are you on the side of truth? Is a question that I will leave you with. Ponder over it for the next 2.5 decades. 3 if you like. There is no end to that pondering. But happy thinking. Sociology makes us think. Because when I question my biography, when I see and question my history, that is when I become what I am. The Hegelian unfolding of the Hegel spirit, the impotential in all of us which becomes you and me, is actually a result of our long journey to freedom. A long journey to freedom which is filled with obstacles, filled with temptations, filled with lust, filled with greed. When Arjuna was told by Krishna that you should fight because it is a just war, he actually did not close the debate. In my thinking, he opened the debate. Is ethics more important than morals, or morals more important than ethics? Thank you very much for listening to me.